All right. Well, hey guys. Welcome to this, whatever it is, where I'm going to talk about some of the films that I believe to be some of the best and worst of the past year. We're sitting here, it's the 30th of January, so it's almost or not January, December, almost the end of the year. I went and saw a lot of films this year. As you know, we run the summer and winter movie drafts here and for the West Michigan League, and we've had some varying successes, and there are different movies that you go and see that are in each one. And so why not talk about some of the films to just unravel the past year. But before we get into all that, I know that some of you are dying to see what some of the winter draft scores are. So as of right now, we'll go through that. Fifth place is Aaron and Jake with $143.8 million. Fifth place is me and my brother TJ with $252.3 million. Third place is Brian and Ryan with $315 million, pretty much dead even. Second place is Ben and Brittany with $509.4 million, and then $50 million ahead of them right now with not as much of a commanding lead as what we thought it would be, is Corey and Mark with $559.7 million. With a lot of weird movies over the holidays got released. There's a whole big Christmas bunch. We'll go through those really quick. We had American Sniper, which replaced The Interview for me and TJ. We also had Unbroken, the Angelina Jolie World War II movie, and Into the Woods, the big Disney musical release. American Sniper, only being in a couple of theaters, actually did pretty okay. Made about $1 million over the week. Into the Woods did okay, not as big as what I had anticipated, but pretty good, with $52 million. And Unbroken, I actually really surpassed my expectations because it's not the kind of a movie that I feel like would really appeal to wide audiences outside of, you know, what buzz there is for the awards stuff. That one pulled in $51 million, so kind of taking some of the wind out of Disney sales for Into the Woods. Other movies to discuss just while we're here. Foxcatcher is starting to go wide. They're over $6 million now, so that's really good because I know that's in contention for some awards this season. We had The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1. That just exceeded $300 million despite its really slow open, so that's pretty good. I don't know if it's going to hit the 400 though that its predecessor did. We will see. The Hobbit 3 is doing okay as well. It's give or take meeting expectations, but in doing better than the last one. Right now that's $175 million. A lot of projections have had it go to 300. I don't know if it's going to quite work out that way, but you know, we still got a couple months left to see how that's all going to go. Yeah, you know, Big Hero 6 crossed 200 million as well, which I think is pretty much in line with what I would have expected. Yeah, I don't know. Interstellar's still being a little bit disappointed with 178, but that might end up hitting 202 with award season coming back around as well. You know, the movie draft always is fun. We've had a lot of crazy movie situations unfold. We go about a week now with until the next release, which is Taken 3. That belongs to me and TJ. And then we go quite a long time until the next big release, which I guess would be Jupiter Ascending, but even then that's hard to say because I know, at least when I was in the theater last time that trailer played, I got a lot of WTFs around me. I am willing to bet, and I hate to say it, Aaron and Jake, it's probably going to be one of the worst films of 2015. Just saying. So with that completely out of the way, you can always follow what's going on at bit.ly/WMWMD14. That's a quick way to see the doc. I try to update it, you know, a couple of times a week. Some weeks I'm better, some weeks I'm not. You know, we just had the holiday rush through my job. We're finally getting into the slow season. Hopefully I'll have more time to do things like this because I really do enjoy doing them. But without further ado, let's kind of talk about some of the movies that we had that came out over the past year. At least in the United States, you know, it's tough to release a lot of films that are big in scope or have a very heavy-handed story or nature or do things differently. And, you know, it really kind of sucks because the movies that you really want to see oftentimes are not available in a theater near you. Now, being here in West Michigan, thankfully we have some movie theaters that play good stuff. Our local chain does a really great job of getting movies eventually in theaters that people really want to see, the more artistic, independent type stuff. And then we've also got the Draft House down in Kalamazoo, about a half-hour away. They play some of the best movies of the year down there. So if any of you guys are in Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo or anywhere close nearby that can get there easily, heavily, heavily, heavily recommend going out to the Alamo Draft House, or really any part of the country you live if they offer an Alamo Draft House. That's the place to go and see a movie, because they're probably going to have some of the best stuff playing each and every year. And in terms of like the scope of films this year, I think we're all kind of sitting in a slump after how big 2012 was. 2013 was a pretty okay year. There were some obvious standout films that did things differently, like Gravity. Those kind of changed the game. And 2014, I think, was kind of the same kind of year where we're just kind of treading water until we get to the ridiculously massive movies that release in 2015. I'll remind you guys once again, if you haven't looked at the film list that releases in 2015, it's absolutely insane what kind of blockbuster, benchmark, franchise, just insane films that release next year. Really in only a few months, if you really think about it, which is kind of crazy. And maybe I'll do an episode on some of that stuff that I'm greatly anticipating, and I hope you would too. But for right now, I guess we'll start with some of the best and worst of the year. I organized my list of films, and I realized, as I was looking at what I actually went to the movie theater to see this year, or what I rented on, on Google Play or Amazon or whatever, not a lot of garbage on my list. Now, I know I am missing a ton of movies in my thing, because I, for the life of me, cannot remember what exactly I completely watched in every single situation, but I did look at the list of what released in theaters this year, did my best to remember everything. I think I got everything. So we'll kind of talk about that. So I guess instead of going for the best, let's go for the worst to start with. Now, my worst list, probably not the best list to go off of, because I really try to avoid going to see movies that look like crap to begin with. So you're not going to see any crummy little horror movies. You're not going to see any crummy, independent movies with, a stick up their ass like Zach Braff's garbage movie that was apparently one of the worst things of the year. I've got 5 movies on my worst list. We'll start off with number 5. We'll talk about Interstellar. Now, this does not necessarily mean that Interstellar was a worst, like absolute worst movie of the year, but of the movies I saw, I'm going to put Interstellar at number 5. But only really for like the last third of the movie. I don't really want to get into spoilers, but there's some stuff that happens that you can start to see that it's going to happen, and it really kicks off with a character reveal towards the end of the movie, where you're just kind of like, what? So it starts with that point, and it just starts derailing. And I don't know if it's a byproduct of the movie had to get made, if it's just something where they want to put a twist on the end, what exactly it was, but it really kind of sours the experience. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a bad, really bad movie, because it isn't. Interstellar is definitely a movie worth seeing. It's definitely one of the most beautiful films of this year, just like Gravity was last year. It really focuses on outer space and heavy sci-fi. Or, well, this is definitely more of a heavy science fiction than Gravity, but man, it's a good-looking movie. But just a lot of things are just very poorly executed. There's a lot of actors that I think are wasted, where they kind of play roles that are really one-sided, and they don't necessarily develop, and you don't really understand what these characters were represented until after you're days outside of the film, and you're talking with things about people, and that's not always good. Maybe it is, I don't know, but Interstellar, just the ending really put a dour note on the film, which was definitely, it's a great movie. I would highly recommend going to see it. Especially if you can see it in IMAX. It's a beautiful film, but just don't get your hopes up too high for it being one of the best films of the year. Number 4 on my worst movies of the year has to be Godzilla. Now, I think, again, kind of in the same way with Interstellar, it's a movie that I didn't necessarily hate, but it's a movie that had some huge promises, and the execution was executed, to say the least. Bryan Cranston was billed as the main character. I'll just say a spoiler now, he dies within the first third of the movie. I don't know why. It just all of a sudden he's there and then he's gone. Okay. That was kind of weird that they marketed it that way. And you could tell they were definitely riding off of the Breaking Bad positivity for him as a great actor. But, you know, Godzilla, you kind of take what you can from it. I mean, it is an action movie, like a dramatic action movie. You know, the original Godzilla movie is art in the way that it started a genre, and it really kind of set the standard for the next couple of years with how things looked and things like that. But like, if you actually watch the Godzilla movie, it's really not that great. So this one, it's kind of the same thing where, you know, you've got very impressive visuals. We completely reimagined the way that Godzilla looks and acts, which I think is great. You know, but the problem is that it's not focused on the monsters. And we wanted it to be focused on the monsters, and instead we get is it Taylor Kitsch? Is that his name? I don't remember. The dude who plays Kick-Ass, and he'll be playing Quicksilver in the new Avengers movie. That guy plays just an incredibly boring, just, I don't even know why we have this character. Like, he goes through some shit that nobody should be going through, and he does all the way through to the very end. Mary-Kate Ashley Olsen's sister, is in it. She's also in the new Avengers movie, playing the sister of the Kick-Ass guy, which is kind of awkward to see them make out in this movie, knowing that they're going to be siblings in another. So that's kind of weird. So Godzilla, I think it's more of expectations versus reality. You know, it made pretty good money, both in the U.S. market and in the international market, and that's awesome. You know, Legendary, I'm sure, was a little worried about this film going in. It makes me a little bit excited for Legendary's new King Kong movie, because, you know, if they're doing King Kong, there's a good chance they're going to be able to do King Kong and Godzilla together, and they keep talking about that crossover with Pacific Rim and Godzilla, and good Lord, that would be great. So well, I guess we'll keep our fingers crossed. Number 3 on the list of bad movies has to be The Hobbit 3, The Battle of the Five Armies. You know, this really has been a franchise that was incredibly amazing as The Lord of the Rings, a movie franchise that started with very, I'm going to say, humble beginnings. They had a budget. They had to do a lot of realistic effects, and then the CG kind of came in and added to the realistic effects that they had all the way through. Whereas The Hobbit has been entirely dependent on CGI, and this film is just of no exception. There are so few practical effects in this movie that it really kind of starts to get weird. I mean, this is like a movie for the Uncanny Valley in the same way that I think that Final Fantasy movie was back in like the early 2000s. It's just, it's weird. Like, it just makes you feel weird. And it's not that, again, that it's like the worst movie, but it's definitely the best of the 3 Hobbit movies. But man, is it not a good movie at all. You know, they bill Smaug as this big deal, and Smaug gets in there and really doesn't do much of anything. Oh, excuse me while I turn this off. This is kind of annoying. You know, Smaug gets in there and he's gone within the first couple minutes. Again, spoilers, if you haven't read this fucking book that's been around for 50, 60 years. You know, I mean, this entire movie is basically built on a couple of paragraphs in a short children's book, and you can definitely tell that they were stretching it by the end of this movie. It is the shortest of the 3 Hobbit movies, thank God. You know, it's got some acting that is okay, and it's got a lot of other acting that literally looks like they're just phoning it in. Say what you will about the entire Hobbit franchise, though. Martin Freeman is great as Bilbo. He is probably the most compelling character in the entire Lord of the Rings Hobbit franchise. Like, yes, perfect, spot on, great. But this movie it really was a stinker. And, you know, as much as people were clapping in the theaters when I went and saw it on opening night, there were also plenty of people sitting around me who really vocalized their distaste for this movie at the very end. And, you know, once again, it's very pretty. And if you like pretty movies, it's worth seeing. But just do not get your hopes up for a story, and just prepare yourself for the most horrific of Uncanny Valley characters in the film. I'm still appalled by what was placed in front of me in this film. It's just shocking how bad the CGI looks in some sequences. Like, I mean, yes, it looks good, and oh yeah, look at that, but no, not. If we're gonna have more movies like this with Weta doing the special effects, not what I want to see anymore. And then, we skipped the third here. I guess we're going to put it in contention for second and third, in the same way that Hobbit was. Hunger Games Part 1 Mockingjay. It's really kind of grown into more of a sour film, in my opinion. Again, not because it's a particularly bad movie, but because I feel like the hype train got a little too hot, and it kept rolling, and you couldn't stop it, and there it was in the very end, and it just kind of sat in front of you and existed. And, you know, if you've read the book, jury's out on the book, I think, with people who like it and people who don't. I thought the book was okay. The first half of the book was pretty boring, and this first half of the movie was pretty boring, you know, within reason to be expected. That's just the way the world works sometimes. You know, Jennifer Lawrence, nothing against her. She does a great job when she's doing a great job. And, you know, other times, like, you can see that she's phoning it in. And obviously in the book, as Katniss, she kind of phones it in a bit, too, as a character. You know, I don't know if it becomes more of a commentary on the book or the film, with the reason why I have it on my bottom 5 list. But it's just not really all that great. Does that mean I'm less excited for the sequel? No, because the second half of the book I thought was really fantastic, and it moved at a good pace, and it was definitely written as an action movie, just as the rest of the other books were written as action movies. But when you try to shoehorn drama into it, it doesn't really work, and like the feel just was off. So I'm excited to see what happens in the second one, because this one wasn't so good. But, you know, it's definitely not going to be in my top, you know, half of the movies I saw this year. So I've ranked it, you know, somewhere towards the bottom. But I think without question, really from anyone, and one of the few movies where I've been to really in the last 10 years where I've been like, why did I spend money on this, was definitely Transformers Age of Extinction. You know, walking in, I think there was a loud vocal cry from the internet saying, you know, you're not going to get me again, Michael Bay. You're not going to get me, Hasbro. Screw you, Paramount. You've got enough of my money. You know, I walked in thinking, here we are, another Transformers movie. How bad could it be? You know, we got rid of Sam Witwicky, which is great because I can't stand Shia LaBeouf. We got rid of that one-dimensional girlfriend that he had. We got rid of everybody else. Let's see where things are going. And in this movie, it was garbage from beginning to end. Garbage. I mean, not only was it an advertisement for General Motors, which, you know, as a Michigander, great, General Motors, get your money, dollar, dollar bill, y'all. It was a commercial. You could feel that it was a commercial. It was a commercial for Bud Light. It was a commercial for condangs and condoms. It was a commercial for, you know, China is like this wonderful country, which it isn't. It was a commercial for commercialism. I mean, it was just horrible what you saw in this movie, and, you know, it's everything that's wrong with major motion pictures right now, and I feel bad that I spent the money to support it, to make it make as much money as what it did. Now, yes, it did flop by comparison to the other Transformers movie, which is awesome, but it flopped here and not elsewhere, and that's also a problem. It made over $1 billion all over the world, which means guess what's coming? Another train of Transformers featuring Mark Wahlberg and the pissed off Autobots who we wish were not dickheads all the time and overreact towards everything. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I think if you see any part of this movie that is going to turn you off of it, it's got to be the part where they wreck the Bud Light truck and Mark Wahlberg grabs a can up off the ground and cracks it open over someone's car who's yelling at him. And he starts guzzling the damn thing there in Chicago. There you go. That's Michael Bay. That's Transformers. You know, I after how much I hated Pain and Gain, after how much I didn't like the last Transformers movie, I don't know why. I don't know why I did this. And yet here we are begging for a new Bad Boys movie. We've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles being a pile of dog poo. What more do you want? I don't know, America. If you want to go to the lowest common denominator, here's your movie. That's great. Congratulations. You deserve seeing one of the worst movies of the year, if not the worst movie of the year. At least for me, the absolute worst movie of the year. Before we get into the top films, I do want to talk about a couple other things. There are some movies that I did see that I think are worth mentioning, at least to encourage people to go out and see. First one, without a doubt, is Edge of Tomorrow, which I think they're marketing now as Live, Die, Repeat. That is the science fiction movie with Tom Cruise, where his character can somehow die and restart his day. So it's kind of like a science fiction Groundhog Day. Absolutely wonderful film. Came out back in, what was it? July, August, May. So it was over the summer. Kind of came out at a weird lull of movies. Didn't really get the promotions that it deserved. Didn't really get a lot of things. And it kind of came out at a weird time where Transformers was like the big release, and this was the smaller one. And a lot of reviews shit all over Transformers and then said, go see Edge of Tomorrow. And Edge of Tomorrow kind of picked up the pace a little bit, but it never really met the expectations that it was supposed to. I mean, honestly, it's arguably one of the best science fiction films of the year. It's arguably one of my favorite films of the year, but I don't know if it's like a best film of the year. Great. I mean, it's fun. It's action-packed. It moves at a good pace. It actually tells a story, which is wonderful because that doesn't happen very often. Tom Cruise is actually a likable character in this, which, again, is kind of rare these days. Yeah, I mean, honestly, go and see this movie. Rent it. I think it's like just a couple of bucks to rent now on Google Play or Amazon. I mean, it's definitely worth a look if you didn't see it the first time around. The other film I wanted to mention is The Obvious Child, which is a little comedy with that lady comedian who's getting really popular. I can't remember what her name is, but she plays the sister of, what's his name, on Parks and Rec, the douchebag guy. Anyway, little indie film about relationships, about sex, and, well, it's about abortion. And that's a bit of a heavy topic for obvious reasons, and it's kind of important that it is a topic right now in 2014, as we've had a lot of issues with feminism and misogyny and women's rights and a lot of things. And this is kind of a film that kind of, I felt like, broke some things down and kind of embraced the way that at least people in my generation treat a lot of this kind of stuff. And I thought it was a very interesting movie. And it's not necessarily a great movie, and it's not necessarily a movie that you're going to have amazing fun watching and wanting to watch over and over again, but it's definitely not as painful as what I'm making out to be either. It's definitely worth a look. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it's on Google Play. I don't know about Netflix yet, so I would check for it. It's definitely worth a rental at the very least. Give it a look. You might find out that you like it. As far as the best films of the year for me, I've got 5 on the list. Again, I saw so many good movies that picking 5 best films was kind of difficult. It kind of depends on what mood I'm in each day and, what movies I saw the day before, the day after. I mean, it's honest to God truth. I liked the majority of the films I saw this year, minus a couple. I think I only saw 3 films total that I really, really did not like, and that's pretty good. So for my top 5, we'll start with the 5th one, which I guess technically released in such a late time frame in 2013 that I didn't end up seeing it until early 2014, at least when it became available here. And that's the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is Wes Anderson's, I'm going to say it's a comedy drama set in like a pre-World War I Europe. There's a lot of allegory in it to a lot of different things. It's really just a great little movie. It tells a very condensed story. It doesn't really stop moving at any point in time. It's got great acting by Ralph Fiennes, who honestly I wish did more and more things all the time. Who else is in it? Edward Norton is in it. Edward Norton is always great in everything he does, and this is of no exception. I'm losing who else is in it. There's a lot of like cameos. Bill Murray, as always, is in a Wes Anderson movie. Jason Schwartzman as well. I mean, it's just a cute, and I don't want to use that word too lightly, but it's a cute, fun, nice movie that you could throw on and you could do the dishes and do the laundry and still watch it and kind of get what's going on and just have a good, or like it's a perfect, date movie too. There's a lot of good things that go on in that movie. It's definitely worth watching, and I think it's definitely one of the strongest Wes Anderson movies that we've had in a while. You know, I think more than a year out now, I feel like the last Wes Anderson movie, Moonrise Kingdom, is kind of started to wane on its acceptance, and I think this one's kind of held up a little bit better, which is good and absolutely is deserved. You know, and I would definitely put it in my top 3 Wes Anderson movies for sure. So if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and give it a look. I believe it's free right now on HBO and HBO Go. You know, and I'm sure it's probably pretty cheap to stream elsewhere. So definitely give that one a look. Number 4 for me is a movie that I saw with friends and really, really liked, and then it kind of soured a bit, and now I'm kind of back on the cusp of really, really liking it and wanting to see it one more time, and that is Birdman. Now, I know I've talked about this movie a lot elsewhere, among friends and among you know, coworkers and things like that. And Birdman is just one of those movies where I feel like it's either you really, really like it or you're really not going to like it. And I think that's kind of the point of the movie too. It talks a lot about what art is and what if like major motion pictures can be art in just the same way that theater is art, and who is acting and who is not, and you know, what does it mean to be liked by the public now, and what did it used to mean, and things like that. And you know, Birdman is just one of those films that I think is such a great commentary on where we're at today, at least in terms of motion pictures and you know, the art of film and the art of theater. And you know, really, it's the kind of movie that I feel like is going to be analyzed in art school for a while. I don't know if it's going to last as long as some other films, but it's just such a great movie, and it, you know, such great performances by every single headlining character in it, from Zach Galifianakis to Edward Norton, with Emma Stone, and then obviously with Michael Keaton playing the lead role. I mean, just give us more Michael Keaton. I mean, that's really just the be-all, end-all of this movie. We just want more Michael Keaton because we all seem to forget about him, and it's horrible because he's such a great actor, and he's just got such a wonderful like look in his way of doing things, and it's so good. Like, it's, you know, you might see it and you might not like it, and I think that's also what makes this movie great, is because it exposes you to new ideas and a new way of like seeing cinema and the way that it was shot and the music and everything. It's just such a wonderful film. And if it's still playing by you, because I think right now where I am here in Grand Rapids, I think it finally left the main theater. And I don't think they're playing it down at the Draft House anymore. So I'm going to have to check out the cheap theater. Otherwise, I'm sure it'll be on rental soon, and I can't wait to watch it again. It's just such a magnificent movie. So I highly recommend that one to see as well, if you haven't seen it. 2 and 3 in my top 5 list are pretty much interchangeable. And by that, I mean, and it's kind of like with the last one. These movies were kind of similar in a way where the anticipation was great and the execution was great. And everything about these movies are great. And I can't really think of negatives about these movies whatsoever, other than the fact that they kind of are the same kind of movies. And those 2 movies are Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. Obviously the 2 biggest Marvel releases this year, besides Big Hero 6. Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy really both completely knocked it out of the park in terms of ticket sales, acceptance by fans, acceptance by critics, acceptance by people who wouldn't normally go to see these movies. And like the fact that they pulled off Guardians of the Galaxy and made it as big as what it was is still just absolutely mind-boggling to me. Let alone shoehorning this incredibly topical discussion about, you know, personal liberty and internet security and all this stuff into the Winter Soldier right in the middle of when we're having these kind of issues in the country right now. I mean, I really can't speak enough about these movies and how good they are. I mean, they're absolutely perfect from top to bottom, left to right. I think you're going to get a little bit overblown on some of them from some people in certain ways with, you know, acting. I mean, it is a Marvel movie, and it's not to say that nobody did a good job, but everybody did a great job. And it's not like it's an art house movie either, but damn, like these are like mainstream blockbuster movies with great performances, great soundtracks, you know, great special effects. I mean, yes, certain characters kind of come in and you're like, oh, Glenn Close is Star-Lord, or not Star-Lord, Nova Commander. Like, what? and then everybody just kind of goes in and out. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, if you haven't seen these movies, what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, this is the biggest franchise in the history of our lifetimes. I think this is obviously the biggest, longest story in the history of all of cinema. I mean, these Marvel movies are making money hand over fist, and that is going to be of no exception in the spring with Age of Ultron, and then the summer with Ant-Man. What else can I say? Go see these damn movies if you haven't seen them. I mean, holy shit. Amazing films. So easily my 2 and 3 favorite movie of the year. You can choose which one is which, but they were obviously 2 of the best. But to talk about my number 1 movie, we're going to get a little bit into things where I don't think people are really going to necessarily agree with me, and that's okay. But it is what it is. Number 1, absolutely without a doubt, hands down, unquestionably, from the moment I saw it, has been the number 1 movie I've seen this year, and that is Under the Skin. Under the Skin is a science fiction movie, a very heavy science fiction movie, which I think makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. And that's okay. I don't want to talk too much about details of the story to say other than, the basic summary of the plot is that Scarlett Johansson is an alien from another planet who exists by cultivating men to feed upon, and she drives around the moors. I think it's the moors. I don't know what they are up in Scotland, but basically she's in the Scottish countryside driving around, and she's picking up dudes and killing them. That's really about the gist of the whole story. It's a lot more complicated than that. In terms of what it represents, how they shot it, the music. It's just one of those movies that it just absolutely sticks with you, and it's constantly kind of in the back of your mind, and it's art to the highest degree. In a way that I did not expect whatsoever. I had heard good things about the movie. I heard him talk about it on the Slash Film podcast, which, by the way, if you're not listening to, please go and listen to it. What a wonderful show. But they talked about it, and they talked about some of the weird things about it. And, one of the things I like about, a little bit more on the horror end of films is movies that kind of make you feel uncomfortable. And not that they're scary, but they just kind of unsettle you. And this is the kind of movie that is very incredibly, deeply unsettling, and I really, really like the world that's created out of it. And the acting that's done by Scarlett Johansson is great. And it's just like, when you realize that when they were shooting this movie, she was driving around in this van in Scotland talking to people, and people did not recognize who she was, even though she very clearly is a major celebrity. She would talk to these people and act like she was trying to pick them up, and these people wouldn't realize what's going on. And that's just mind-boggling to me when you think about how she's this actress with celebrity culture surrounding her, with the paparazzi and all that stuff, and that she could literally just drive around in Scotland and do all this shit. That's pretty crazy. It's definitely commentary on, again, just kind of like with Obvious Child, with feminism and misogyny, and there's a lot of strange, sexual predator things that happen in this movie that are meant to make you feel uncomfortable, especially as a male. And it really turns the table on a lot of things with how we feel about rape culture and things like that. And it's just such an incredible movie. And then, you've got the movie, and then you've got the soundtrack, which is one of the most incredible soundtracks I think ever in the history of cinema. I mean, I don't remember who did the original score, but it's this really deep, like pounding, rhythmic, kind of like dance music almost, that plays in the background, that is meant to make you feel really weird. And it's like, if you take a page out of Trent Reznor's score from Gone Girl, which is maybe about a 6 or a 7 on the scale of things to make you kind of feel unsettled, crank it up about 2 or 3 more notches, you hit that 9, 10. This thing just creeps you out, and it's absolutely fabulous. And I cannot say any louder how much of a great movie this is to go and watch. It is for free to watch right now on Amazon Prime Instant if you are a Prime member. I would highly suggest going to see it right now. Just prepare yourself to be unsettled and to feel a little gross when you get done, and kind of analyze why it is that it made you feel that way. And I think that's what makes this one of the best movies of the year. It is art in the highest sense, and I cannot recommend this movie enough. Is absolutely my favorite film of the year, and I hope you do. And I would love to hear what you guys think are some of your favorite films of the year. Feel free to post below. You know, I'd love to hear from you. As always, guys, I am Brad, the guy who does this kind of stuff. I will hopefully be updating you with the movie draft in the next couple of days, and doing maybe another video on some of the best things that we can expect for 2015 with video. So until next time, guys, I hope you guys have a great New Year's Eve. I hope you have a great New Year's Day. Please don't be hungover, because I know there's a good chance I might be, and I have to work, and nobody wants to do that. So have a safe holiday, guys. We'll see you next time.